Capital Link is organizing two major maritime forums in New York every year in March and in October. The October Forum, it is the 15th time we organize it. It is done in partnership with DNB. DNB is one of the major commercial and investment banks active in shipping. And we also organize it with the cooperation of the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. Our forum always has the very unique characteristic of featuring industry leaders, mainly listed shipping companies, which use our forum to communicate and reach out to their shareholders and investors. As such, our forum, as I mentioned, features industry leaders and attracts in the audience major investors, financiers, and other industry participants. The topics that we cover are sectors, the main sectors: dry bulk, tankers, gas, and so on, and also industry topics like access to capital, green shipping, decarbonization, capital markets, and so on. This year, our forum is taking place in a particularly critical moment for the industry. On one hand, we have geopolitical challenges. We had the war in Europe. Now we have the war in the Middle East, and that certainly will impact the global supply chain. Then we have the race to green shipping, and this is mandated by regulations, but also by market demand, and then the use of technology that is revolutionizing shipping. Today we have with us as keynote speaker Nikos Tsakos, who is celebrating the 30th anniversary of Tsakos Energy Navigation being public. TEN got listed in 1993 on the Oslo Stock Exchange, actually on the very same day as our forum on October 10, and then got transferred in 2002 to the New York Stock Exchange. So Nikos will be, who's one of the main, the global sponsor, will celebrate this great milestone with us, and he will introduce the main keynote speaker, Mark Ross, who is the CEO of Chevron Shipping. Chevron, as we all know, is one of the oil majors, and they have a tremendously big footprint in energy, but also in shipping, as they are one of the main charterers and operators of ships. So we look forward to his keynote speech later on, and again, I'm very happy to see how this forum turned out so well.
Speaking with the panelists and the participants of the forum, what is your general feeling? Is there an optimist comparing to the challenges that you already mentioned, for example, the tensions in the Middle East and the continuous war in Ukraine?
Shipping, volatility, and challenge always go together. So for ship owners, volatility and uncertainty are everyday phenomenon. I would hate to say, but that's true, that geopolitical events tend to be positive for shipping because they create, unfortunately, disruptions in the global supply chain, and that's when shipping kicks in to maintain the supply chain. So all these geopolitical upheavals are good for shipping. Shipping today, let's also remember that shipping carries 80 to 90% of the global trade. So therefore, the position of shipping as a main link in the global supply chain is undeniable. Today, shipping, most of the markets in shipping go through a good time. And if we look ahead, the outlook is positive. I don't want to go down every sector, but because of the energy security question throughout the world, LNG now is becoming very important, LNG infrastructure, so that gas sector is affected very positively. That means also the tanker sector is affected very positively, dry bulk. So every sector has, I think, positive fundamentals looking forward.
And a couple of things about the next plan of Capital Link.
Well, Capital Link is organizing about 18 events per year around the world. 15 of them are maritime. We are present in all major centers in Europe, the US, and Asia. So frankly, all we want is to keep this going, keep the high level, high quality, and our next event, actually, today is October 10, we are in New York. October 23, we'll be in Shanghai. October 26, we will be in Tokyo, and November 8 in Hamburg, and then back to New York December 11 for the 25th annual Capital Link Invest in Greece Forum, where we will be talking about Greece as an investment and business destination. So, thank you very much. I look forward to all these trips around the world and to meeting industry participants all over the place.
How do you see 2023 shaping so far in your sector, and what do you foresee for the last quarter?
Yeah, I think 2023 we see the market is very good, and of course there's a lot of demand for different services, and I think in the future and next year it will be even better.
The continuous war in Ukraine and the recent tensions in Israel and generally Middle East, how do you believe is affecting and will affect your sector?
I think on the global shipping, the conflicts of this geographic situation is going to be putting a pressure for the global shipping, and we will see the effects were coming. Towards for example, the Middle East, Israel and Palestine, that is going to be put a lot of pressure to the global shipping, and it's created a lot of uncertainties. So, but I'm kind of optimistic. So we will see a solution will come pretty soon, and hopefully that the things will sort itself, and then the shipping will be moving forward.
And a last question about today's Capital Link Forum. What will be the key points of your speech, and what do you expect to hear for rest of the panels?
Yeah, my panel will be talk about decarbonization. I think decarbonization is one of the key challenges and opportunities for global shipping. So I'm happy to have a discussion with our panel and see what we can do and improve the decarbonization. And at the same time, we would also like to hear that all the shipping segments, how they are dealing with these challenges.
...2023 so far, how do you see the shipping market, shaping so far, and what can you foresee for the last quarter of the year?
I think that it's safe to say that it's mixed. There are some segments of the shipping markets that have been extremely strong this year, the liquid gas markets in particular. Others are weaker or declining. The biggest thing for the coming quarter, I think, is getting a handle on some of these events that are causing uncertainty in the global economy to perhaps be more severe. Conflict in the Middle East is not something that's going to inspire confidence in a good path forward for the global economy if it continues to worsen. And that is a serious risk factor for shipping, for most segments of shipping.
So you have answered half my second question. So I want you to elaborate on the continuous war in Ukraine, and if you believe that the shipping market is already adapted to this, situation, or it's still there is impacts.
I think the war in Ukraine, the shipping market has adapted to. There are still some effects of it that will play out over the coming year, probably, particularly with gas imports to Europe, liquid gas imports to Europe. But that, I think, has been factored in, by and large, in the shipping industry. It's the more recent developments in the Middle East that have the potential, I think, to disrupt things more.
And a last question about today's Capital Links Forum. Can you share with us the key points of your speak, and what do you expect to hear with interest from for other panels and panelists?
Yes, so the focus of what I came here for is decarbonization, the efforts to reduce carbon emissions from ships, and the role that financial incentives can play in that for ship owners, such as those offered by the voluntary carbon markets and by regulated markets like the ETS. I'm very curious to hear coming panels on new technologies being developed to assist in that transition. I think this is a very exciting area and one where a lot of investment is needed. And so I'm glad to see the focus is on that here at this event.
(2023), how you see the maritime business shaping so far, and what do you foresee for the last quarter?
Yeah, for LPG shipping, that's our specialty. It's really been a very strong 2023. We've had back-to-back quarters of record EBITDA. The third quarter, we already guided to another record. So really for us in the LPG business, it's been great, both from propane, ethane, ethylene, ammonia trade has really picked up. So we've seen a very strong 23, and it's boding well for an even stronger 24.
We have the continuous war in Ukraine. Nowadays, there is the recent tension that maybe goes, like way ahead in Israel, generally Middle East. How this is impacting, in your opinion, the business?
Yep. So Russia-Ukraine initially, the big impact for us was on the ammonia trade, right? So before Russia-Ukraine, we only had about 2 or 3 vessels carrying ammonia. We got up to 10. Now we're back to around 8 or 9. So the market there on the ammonia has really expanded with the Russian-Ukraine tensions. And now what you sadly see with Israel and Iran and Gaza and everything else, there's certainly going to be continued disruptions, right, in trade lanes, in commodity flows. So we'll see. But normally during these times of hostility and tensions, it's boosting up commodity prices, boosting up international and geographical arbitrage opportunities and spreads. So we'll see. But in terms of Russia-Ukraine, at least, for the ton-mile demand for the commodities we carry, it has certainly improved those the demand for our ships.
And a last question about today's Capital Link Forum. Can you share with us basic key points of your speech, and what you are expecting to hear with interest from other panel and panelists?
Sure. Yeah, the Capital Link Forums are always a highlight. I've been coming to them for a decade now, twice a year here, and then in Athens and London and various cities around the world. But for us, I was on the carbon panel, really talking about Navigator Gas and our decarbonization efforts, both in the short term and the long term. And then I just wrapped the LPG shipping panel as well. And both rooms were crowded. There's a lot of positive energy here at the conference today, with rates being where they are and the shipping markets being where they are. So it should be a fun-filled day.
How the conditions on your sector shape so far in 2023, and what do you foresee for the last quarter?
So the sectors remain pretty strong for us. If you think about the strength and the economic advantage the North American chemical plant and refining complex has globally, even though we're seeing a slowdown in the global economy, refinery utilization remains strong in North America. So it's been good for business. Expect Q4 to be good as well.
How the continuous war in Ukraine affects your sector, and do you believe that the recent tensions in Israel and generally Middle East will have an impact as well?
I mean, you're always going to see the trade lanes change when you have what's going on in Israel, and also the dispute with Ukraine and Russia. It changes, but our business is nimble. We're able to redeploy our assets in other trade lanes. We've seen growth in renewables and renewable feedstock, so that's offset some of that for us.
And on your panel that you will participate, what will be your main focus, the key points that you will discuss about?
The key points will be the constraints on the supply side of our business, both construction cost and the interest rate environment, and also the outlook for business as we move forward. It's an interesting time now. The fundamentals are good, so we should have a nice run here.
2023, how you see the year shaped so far in the shipping market, and what did you foresee for the last quarter of this year?
So my company is principally involved in the Jones Act trade in the United States, and so we have a relative degree of isolation from the international markets. The dynamics in this market have had their own special situations. The market for Jones Act tankers has been quite strong this year. Our customers have seen a tightening market environment and have therefore been quite active in looking for longer-term commitments for transportation capacity and the visibility of meeting their own distribution needs. So you've seen a significant lengthening of charter commitments from our customers across the last 12 months, in particular in this year, and we think that's going to continue for the foreseeable future.
The continuous war in Ukraine and the recent tension in Israel and generally the Middle East, how this is affecting shipping market in your opinion, and if it will continue having a significant impact?
Look, again, in the context of U.S. flag vessels, we and some other U.S. tanker operators participate in a recently stood up program called the Tanker Security Program. This is a transportation and MARAD sponsored program to increase the number of U.S. flag vessels that trade outside of the Jones Act trade in international trades. This is principally done as a means for providing visible support for defense initiatives if they ever are needed. So the heightened tension over the last 18 months I think has created a deepening awareness of the importance of having U.S. flag tankers not committed to the domestic market, because in a wartime situation, the need to maintain the domestic economy is one that is fundamental to being able to support a conflict overseas. So expanding that U.S. flag tanker footprint through the Tanker Security Program, I think is something that has happened this year, and I think that you can expect continued focus on seeing that number of ships grow larger over the years to come.
And the last question about today's Capital Link Forum, key points for your speech, and what do you expect to hear with interest from other panels and panelists?
Look, to me, the real fertile ground for exchange of ideas right now is in the regulatory environment. How are people dealing with changing regulations in our global IMO context? How they're thinking about transitioning away from fossil fuels, how they're thinking about managing labor issues. These are things that, for me, in looking at other executive managers that are speaking to these topics, are interesting for me to listen to.
2023, how you see the year shaping so far, and what do you foresee for the last quarter of this year in your sector?
Yeah, so this year has a lot of uncertainty, both in shipping and in our just normal life. You know, high inflation, high interest rates, and extreme climate situation. But I have high hope for shipping, because shipping is very resilient. So it has different cycles, it has ups and downs, but it's the core of international trade. So that's like the blood of our daily life. So I stay very hopeful for next year.
The continuous war in Ukraine and the recent tensions in Israel and Middle East, how do you believe that this is affecting the shipping market?
I think it probably will affect the shipping routes, and we will have like maybe longer or shorter shipping routes, and then different sectors of the shipping industry will have like up and down. But I think in shipping in general, it will be just like all the other times. You know, it's a very cyclical industry, and but it's, you know, the core of global trade.
And the last question about today's Capital Link Forum, the key points of your speech, and what do you expect to hear from other panel and panelists?
I think, for my panel is ship finance panel. We have traditional banks. We have alternative finance providers. They focus on the industry, but some provide to institutional ship owners. Some provide financing for smaller owners or older vessels. So it's interesting to hear their perspectives, especially in this very uncertain, turbulent year of 2023 after the pandemic.
How do you see 2023 shaping so far, and what do you foresee for the last quarter of this year?
Oh, it's been stronger than people expected, and I think international conflicts have added to ton miles. So I think going into 24, it'll be a little firmer than people expected.
In a way, you start answering my second question, and having the recent events and tensions in Israel and Middle East, how you think this will continue affecting your sector along with the continuous war in Ukraine?
Yeah, I think they'll be hard to predict. Hard to predict. Obviously, the tragedy on a personal level, on a human level, but I think that ton miles will continue to get added to ships who are looking for alternate routes, which takes supply out of the market.
And for today's Capital Link Forum, can you share with us the key points of your speak, and what do you expect to hear from other panels?
No, it's a big surprise for later.
How do you see 2023 shaping so far in your sector, and what you can foresee for the last quarter of the year?
Yeah, 2023 has been it's been a record deal volume for us. Ship finance is definitely diversifying into the non-bank market. We've seen about $8 billion of new deal activity so far this year, so it's looking good and very busy going into the fourth quarter.
The continuous war in Ukraine and the recent tensions in Israel and general Middle East, how is affecting your sector?
Yeah, it's definitely making life more complicated. From a sanctions perspective, we're very careful. We track every ship in our portfolio every day and identify high-risk voyages. So, yeah, I think the geopolitical uncertainty is creating a lot of risks for ship finance lenders at the moment, and we have to be careful.
And a last question about today's forum. What will be the key points of your speech, and what do you expect to hear from other panels as well?
Yeah, I think the key points from me today are going to be about the transition from the banking market to the non-bank lending market. Bank lending has fallen in 2022 to the lowest level of the last 20 years. And non-bank lending has made up about half of the last year's total capital raised for shipping. And in terms of the rest of the panelists, I expect to hear about the market and how strong tankers are and how dry bulk is looking. Yeah.
How your sector shaped so far in 2023, and what you do foresee for the last quarter?
So far, my sector is doing quite well. I mean, there's a lot of capital now that's being invested in shipping technology, and I think the collaboration within the shipping industry and tech folks is actually happening now. It's really good timing. For the end of this year, I see some more deals getting done. I see shipping companies looking at ways to make their operations more efficient. And so, I feel it's promising within my industry and specifically within maritime technology.
Does your sector is affected from the continuous war in Ukraine and the recent tensions in Israel and general Middle East?
I mean, it is. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that come out of Israel. We have a lot of engineers that work in Ukraine, and obviously my thoughts and go out to them. I spoke to a fund manager yesterday that is based in Israel, and so inevitably it's affected. It's a global issue right now that we're all sort of trying to support, and so yes. Yeah.
And regarding today's Capital Link Forum, what will be the key points of your panel?
The key points of our panel, I would say, are the focus on the way the industry is embracing innovation, finally, I think. From a few years ago until now, I'm not sure that a maritime tech panel would have existed at Capital Link, and it's fantastic that now they're putting it on and giving us this showcase to do that. It would be the collaboration that's taking place within the industry, and the funds that are available now to be invested in technology, which is ultimately going to make the industry a lot stronger.
How do you see in your sector 2023 shaping so far, and what do you foresee for the last quarter?
Yeah, I think the past couple of years has been slow for the startup ecosystem. However, we've seen an uptick the past, I'd say, 2 quarters. I think during the last quarter, especially around right now in October, is when things start to pick up. There's a lot of stuff happening with nearshoring and other parts of the global supply chain where, there's a lot more activity happening.
The continuous war in Ukraine and the recent tensions in Israel and general Middle East, how do you believe is affecting your sector?
Yeah, definitely it's going to affect the nearshoring aspect of supply chains. I think there's a lot more defense sector and supply chain technology coming into the industry. A lot more VCs are kind of like waking up, less, focusing on fintech solutions and more of like, all right, where can we start focusing on bringing manufacturing back? How can we start looking at new solutions that will be deployed overseas and other stuff like that?
And about today's Capital Link Forum, what will be the key points of your speech, and what do you expect to hear from other panels as well?
Yeah, so today I'll be speaking a lot around the ocean maritime startup ecosystem, especially how both the technology and venture part of the ecosystem can be more aware of what solutions the maritime needs today, as well as how the shipping and maritime industry can get more involved and more engaged with the startup ecosystem. So those are the main things I'll be talking about.
How do you see 2023 shaping so far on your sector, and what you can foresee for the last quarter of the year?
Sure. So the shipping industry has been generally quiet in the capital markets, leading up till now. We've seen a lot more interest in consolidation, vessel acquisitions. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that to come, as the year progresses.
The continuous war in Ukraine and the recent tension in Israel and Middle East, what, in your opinion, will be the effects on your sector?
Sure. So, any time that there is, political instability, there's arbitrage opportunities, any sort of insecurity causes folks to call their lawyers. So when they call their lawyers, we see increased activity.
And last question about today's Capital Link Forum. What will be the key points of your speech, and what do you expect to hear from other panel and panelists?
Well, the key takeaways from my panel, are going to be that the capital markets are coming back, that you're going to see increased, consolidation and more activity in the shipping space. I'd expect to see folks talking about energy transition and the impacts that's having on the industry. And I'd also expect to see, just folks talking about more activity generally.
how the conditions on your sector shape so far in 2023 and what you can foresee for the last quarter.
Yeah, so we sit on the capital market side, and it's been a challenging year in sort of the macro environment for investors in general. But the good thing is that shipping is thriving, and that's sort of where the market has been quite good over the last year. So it's a good place for investors to be. So that's helpful for us working in the sector.
How the continuous war in Ukraine keeps affecting your sector, and do you believe that the recent tensions in Israel will have an impact as well?
Yeah, I mean it's always horrible when things are happening around the world, and we always feel for everyone involved. For shipping, uncertainty often creates opportunities, and that's what we've seen in the tanker space as well, both when they started the war in Ukraine and also when we see the disruptions in Israel. Sort of tankers and energy security is getting more important, and that's something I think will continue to be a factor going into the rest of the year.
And a couple of words about today's Capital Links Forum. What do you expect to hear? What is the interest that you have? You know more.
No, I mean, I'm looking forward to today. I think it's going to be interesting to hear what the companies have to say about their sectors. I mean, there's some sectors that are thriving more than others, but I think there's a lot of opportunities. So it will be good to hear what people are seeing, what people are hearing, and yeah, I'm looking forward to today. I think it's going to be good.
2023, how you see the year shaped so far, and what do you foresee for the last quarter in your sector?
I think most sectors have been pretty strong. Most investors have been restrained in terms of putting in new orders, which is helping both on the second hand and on the new builds. And I think some of the turmoil around the world is helping, constrain speculative orders and where the world is going. I think uncertainty will be good in the end, and I think the industry is moving in the right direction, I feel, for the next few months.
So take it from there. Can you elaborate how the continuous war in Ukraine and the recent tensions in Israel and Middle East can affect and impact the shipping business?
I mean, it can affect it in both good and bad ways. So far, it's been in primarily good ways in terms of increasing ton-mile demand. Whether that can change over time and whether the sort of impact of rates and the economies start having a separate effect, we'll have to see. But so far, I mean, unfortunately, the war has been on a benefit to the shipping industry.
And a last question about today's Capital Link Forum. Can you share with us the key points of your today's speech? And what will you look with interest to hear from other panel and panelists?
I'm interested to see around the movements on the decarbonization on the tech space quite a bit. I'm sure, my panel is going to be a lot about consolidation, M&A, capital markets, which I think is certainly important, but I feel that the movements on decarbonization and the tech side of things are upending how the industry is moving, and they're equally important. So on the other panels, at least, that's what I'm hoping to hear.
How the conditions on your sector shape so far in 2023, and what do you foresee for the last quarter?
I see in dry bulk, I think rates are going to be better quarter over quarter. I think we'll see some seasonal pullback in 1Q on the dry bulk sector. With tankers, I expect another better quarter actually as well, getting out of the summer lows and some of the refinery maintenance season. The other sectors, of course, with LNG, I think with the situation in Israel and heightened energy security issues, we'll see some positive movements in LNG carrier rates as well as people try to shore up LNG inventories around the world and try to, especially with the gas field offline in Israel right now. But yeah, I think 4Q is going to be seasonally better for many shipping sectors.
You answer half to my second question, how the recent tension you think will affect your sector. What about the continuous war in Ukraine?
Yeah, the Ukrainian situation continues to disrupt the tanker sector, in particular on the crude side as well as the product tanker side. We'll continue to see dislocations there with increased ton-mile demand, especially on the crude side now that Russia's holding back more of their products. That will be a continued disruption for the foreseeable future, as I don't think we'll see normalized relations between Europe and Russia in particular for likely several years to come.
And a couple of words about today's Capital Link Forum. What do you expect to hear about?
I expect people will be curious around the seasonal lows that we saw during the summer, and they'll be looking forward to the future for some good news, especially in the tanker market. We just saw a big story out with Frontline and Euronav. I'm sure there'll be a lot of buzz and questions around the crude tanker market, especially around VLCCs. And I think for the dry bulk investor, we saw a very weak year this year, and they'll be looking for answers around that and when we can expect a recovery.
How do you see 2023 shaping so far in your sector, and what do you foresee for the last quarter of this year?
Well, it depends on the sector. Obviously, the container group are seeing more ships coming online. Capacity is growing. If you don't have locked-in long-term contracts, you're going to be subject to declining short-term rates. I think sentiment there is negative. However, there are pockets in container vessels that have long-term contracts that are generating nice cash flow. Dry bulkers, dry bulk commodity demand is on the move now. We're seeing rates move up. We're seeing tight supply, and for most of the year, the dry bulk stocks have been languishing. Now they're showing some signs of life coming off their August-September bottoms. In terms of the tanker space, obviously we're seeing some geopolitical pressures, which are always positive for the group. Again, we have a good supply dynamic. We have incremental increase in demand. We have OPEC cuts that are redistributing routes. Longer ton miles are always good for the space, both on the product and on the crude side. Lastly, LNG. It's a question of long-term contracts, and most of them are locked in, even though right now spot market rates are quite high.
Take it from the first question. How do you see, can you elaborate more on the effects that the continuous war in Ukraine has on the shipping market, and how do you believe that the recent tensions in Israel and general Middle East will affect further?
To answer the second one first, I'm not sure what will happen in the Mideast. It's still early days. The biggest concern right now is the Strait of Hormuz. A third of the world's crude oil comes through there. What Iran chooses to do or not to do is probably going to determine the disruption of traffic. Again, disruption of traffic, even though oil production now is more distributed throughout the world, is good for shipping, bad for the rest of us. On your next question, in terms of the Russian, that again, you're looking at things like, everyone's always looking at natural gas supply and oil. People forget about coal. Sourcing coal from other parts of the world to Europe during the heating season, though we're starting out with a warm winter, we're also seeing coal stockpiles need to be replenished. We're also grain you have to eat, and that's coming from other places like the Gulf of Mexico and the U.S. and from South America. So this is an ongoing process, increasing ton miles. And people are focusing more on oil and looking less at the dry bulk commodities like coal and grain.
And last question about today's Capital Links Forum. Key points of your speech, and what do you expect to hear from other panel and panelists?
What do I expect from my other panels and panelists? Generally, there's caution, but I think there's general optimism in terms of, I think the supply side of the equation is very compelling. You don't need a lot of demand to move the leverage in all of these vessels. The industry generally, even though fragmented, relatively fragmented, is rational. You don't have price takers in there. You're having more vessel operators working for a return, and that's positive for everything, even though we're going to see the natural volatility and seasonality in the commodity space.
2023, how you see the year shaping so far in maritime business, and what are you foreseeing for the last quarter?
Well, we have to be able to be adaptable, because if you asked me this question a week ago, things would have been different. As you know, we have events around the world, geopolitical events, including Ukraine and the events in the Middle East, that always change the way we do business. In a short, geopolitical frictions lead to better rates for ships. However, we prefer to have a more peaceful world and be able to have less profit, but more stable profit in a peaceful world.
Do you believe that in the case of the continuous Ukraine war, the shipping industry adapted to the situation? And what is your initial thought, even if it's too early, for the tensions that it's now rising in the Middle East?
Well, shipping is, from the ancient years, has to be adaptable, because the propeller makes you, and you can move from country to country, and the sea unites wherever we have to go. So we're not stranded in one part of the world. So I think shipping has adapted in these conditions. More ton miles right now are out there, and that's why the rates are stronger than they used to be before that.
And one last question. You are one of the basic keynote speaker and the great sponsor of this Capital Link Forum. How do you see the event so far, and what is the general feeling you perceived for the panelists and the participants?
Well, I think Capital Link, the Bornozis, they do a great job in bringing shipping and Greece into the American market. I think it is always very, very well attended, and it has high quality speakers, panels, and it's a pleasure to be here, because you feel connected with what's happening in the biggest economy of the world.
One of the basic keynote speakers, so we'd like you to share with us the key points of your speech today.
Oh, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Nicholas for this opportunity to speak to such an interesting group of ship owners and finance people about the challenges facing the maritime industry today. I identified a few challenges in my keynote. I think the most important one is lower carbon. What can we do to reduce the maritime industry's carbon footprint going forward? And I talked about some of the challenges that we face, but along with those challenges, there's opportunities. And that's the way I hopefully came across today, as hopeful that there are solutions going forward to improve the way that our industry is viewed and improve the way we run our ships.
So speaking with other with panelists and participants in today's forum, what is the general feeling that you got, and what were the most interesting things that you hear about?
Oh, all the panel sessions so far have been extremely interesting to hear the very different viewpoints amongst the panelists. And for me, being primarily in the tanker business and the LNG business, to hear the other shipping sectors as well, to hear their views and their opportunities and their challenges.
In 2023, how you see the year shaped so far, and what did you foresee for the last quarter regarding the maritime industry?
Regarding the
maritime industry.
So, the 2023 surprised me in a couple ways. Central banks surprised me. They were more stimulative on balance than I expected. AI mattered more in the year than I expected. And as far as the M&A transaction at the end of the year, I prefer sudden death over slow death.
the continuous war in Ukraine and the recent tensions in Israel and general Middle East, how impactful is in the business?
It's not showing it dramatically yet. I'm a little surprised we're not seeing more drama. Where we are seeing the drama is the flight to quality. So you've got a very strong U.S. Treasury market today. The market was closed yesterday. You've got a stronger dollar. So we will go through some period of flight to safety. But I have a feeling this is going to be much more dramatic for the markets than the markets see today.
And one last question. What is the feeling that you got speaking with other participants in the forum and panelists? Are they optimists? What draws your interest more?
Listen, shipping has been an amazing place for the last 3 years. Our containers have fallen out of bed in the last year, but shipping has been an amazing place for the last 3 years. And we're so used to having really short cycles. And the sense I get from participants here, they think it's different this time. They think this cycle has much longer legs.
In 2023 so far, how do you see the year shaped in the industry, and what do you foresee for the last quarter of this year?
It's been a really good year for the tanker industry. The war in the Ukraine unfortunately has changed trade patterns. There are only so many ships in the world, so of course ton miles have increased. The rates have skyrocketed, values have skyrocketed. I think the rest of the year will continue as it is. We had a small pause in the middle of the summer, which is a seasonal pause, but overall rates are almost at historic highs.
So I'm taking, your answer from the first question, and I'm jumping in the second one. So how do you think the recent tension that started in Israel a few days ago and generally in the Middle East will impact the business?
That's a great question. I really don't have an answer. We have to wait to see how it plays out. If it becomes a big regional issue, there'll be real problems, I think. And historically, problems in the Middle East have disrupted tanker transportation, have increased rates drastically. But personally, I hope it just stays as it is and it calms down and doesn't expand. And I think everyone in the world is really concerned about a large regional problem with the instability and the problems in the world right now. We don't need it business-wise. We don't need it personally. I think it would be a real tragedy. It could send the world into a recession, which is besides the point. I just think it would be a disaster for all of us.
And about today's Capital Link Forum, can you share with us the key points of your speech? And what was the most interesting thing you heard speaking with other participants or watching other, panels?
I think, first of all, Capital Link always does a good job. I always enjoy being here. It's a good forum. It's a high-quality crowd, if I can say that. A lot of good investors and owners. The forum itself has, I think, panels that are high quality and just run long enough without going on forever. I think the mood of the forum on the tanker side is everyone is not holding their breath but anxious to see what happens next, because it has been a good year or two. And we all went through so many years of bad times that we're fine with the market the way it is and hope that it plays out this way for the foreseeable future. But we know at some point the party's going to end.